Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet. Happy Thursday. Marcus Heflin, looking swole, looking strong, looking all the things. Good morning, sir.
Morning, buddy, man. It is going to be a dynamic day, and I choose to get right into the thick of things because we've got a wonderful, wonderful guest today. So we're going to cue you up for this wonderful Thirsty Thursday. Kyle Evans, break down the resume of this guest that we bringing on for the people, giving the people what they want.
Yeah, man. So this guy, ladies and gentlemen, he is, gosh, you ever seen the show Pinky and the Brain? Right?
Oh,
Jordan
yes.
is the brain. This guy is so smart. Every time I get a chance to listen to him, I'm just wowed. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I really mean it. I'm taking notes. I want to
Okay.
pick his brain. He's like the Chick-fil-A of wisdom nuggets, always coming out, sharing it with the people. Guys, we could not get Patrick Mahomes on the show. So we got the next best thing. This guy has completed thousands of hours of coaching and working on his craft, and he's the number one Chiefs fan in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Freed.
Uh, well, thank you. That I have to be honest, fellas, that is probably the best intro I have ever gotten. And maybe we need to take this show on the road. That was really good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man, and thank you for taking the time out. When Kyle says something like that, for all the audience to hear, Jordan is the coach that coaches go to get coached. So he is going to be modest. He is going to be humble. So we will pump him up and give you exactly why you should be taking notes and get ready for and buckle up for a great day. Jordan, real quick, man, we don't want to spend too much time on it because we want to get into some really deep conversation with you. And yet, just for anybody who's unaware of your come up, a quick bio, what you're doing, your life right now. Can you give us that for just a second?
Yeah, the quick bio, got into real estate in 06, was a team leader in 2012, where I was an agent and a team leader. Started coaching full-time in 2015. April 1st of this year will be 10 years coaching full-time with MAPS. So just rounded out 15,000 one-on-one coaching calls. My calls are 45 minutes. So I hit the 10,000 hour mark in September of last year. So yeah, I'm, as Kyle mentioned, I don't know if I'd call myself the brain. I do think of myself as kind of a professor, that I sit in a laboratory of people and business and psychology and have kind of a holistic approach to coaching that people seem to like.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, I love that you have your own style. You've made it your own. And there's this thing about 10,000 hours with one craft. Oh yeah, you become a master of it at that point. So we're excited to get into the material today. When we were talking and kind of talking about what we would do today and go over, you had referenced a conversation that you had maybe August to September of last year, and you thought that might be a good talking point for us. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I had a woman who reached out to me, and I don't know if you all ever get this, but sometimes I have people that almost demand to talk to me, and I'm like, okay, we'll talk. So she gets on my schedule, and she shared with me, she was a real estate agent, right? And I think it was in 2021. Her first year in the business, got licensed in late 2020. First year in the business, she does 6 million, which is pretty good, right? Second year in the business, which would have been 2022, she did 8. 2023, she does 12. And then 2024 hits. And this was in like August, September. And she said, I'll be lucky to do 3 million this year. And I listened to her and I said, well, I want you to do two things. One thing is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear your business isn't where you want it to be, because the thing about being a great coach, it's just like when people come to me sometimes and they say, I want to get really good at asking questions. And, that's one of the things that I've really practiced in my coaching career. I've written over probably 4,000 questions. And but it hit me one day that the questions are of no consequence. The question is only as good as the state it is asked from. And so if you're going to be a great coach, if you're going to be somebody that changes the trajectory of people's lives and doesn't, look, I'm not about marketing a difference. I want to make a difference. Then coaches that are great are equal parts empathetic, but we are deeply curious. And I'm very curious about why people do what they do and the decisions that they ultimately make. So when I said I was sorry to this woman, I was doing that from a place of empathy, because I can feel for her, right? And I feel for the agents today that things aren't as easy as they used to be. And I said, but I have a very direct thing to say to you, but I want you to hear that it is coming from my heart, that I'm not trying to offend you. And we need to circle back to that, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I said, here's the thing. You're grieving the genius you never had. You're grieving the genius you never had. If you talk to any of us, like I was fortunate, you guys, like as I mentioned, I got my license in 2006, and it was like, the real estate market had started to shift. We all know what happened in 2008. And I was just dumb enough and didn't know any better to go out. In 2009, like 2008, we sold 100 homes. In 2009, we sold 200 homes. And it was just because I had no idea what was going on, right? That was just pure ignorance, right? But what I shared with her is I said, you came into the real estate industry in a time where the fish were hopping into your boat. And there's an unconscious mistake that you made. And the unconscious mistake that you made is that you started thinking you were good at fishing. And you're not. You're not good at fishing. And so you're grieving the genius you never had. And it is going to go through probably the 5 steps to grief. And she said, well, what do I do? And I said, well, if I were you, if you want me to step out of coaching and into consulting, where you want me to just tell you what to do. She said, yes, tell me what to do. I said, one, you have to get deeply into a relationship with your purpose and why, the purpose and why around your business, right? Life's only going to ask you 3 big questions. What do you want? Why do you want it? And who do you have to make yourself become to get it, right? So get deeply clear about that. And I said, the second thing is you need to get your butt in a classroom, because you don't understand the nuance of the landscape today, right? There are less fish in the lake, and the bait, the way that you're going to ultimately bring them in is going to be harder. And then also, when there's less fish, you also draw more attention from the best fisher people. I don't like to say fishermen, but fisher people in the industry. Now you've got the best of the best coming in and trying to fish as well. And I said, you got to get into a classroom. But ultimately, for those of you that got your license in 2019 or 2018, a lot of you are grieving the genius you never had. The market allowed the fish to jump into the boat. And I'm sorry that that's your version of real estate, because you talk to any of us that were around a long time, that 2020 was so remarkable as it relates to the productivity of real estate, that a lot of times we actually take it out when we trend numbers. You know what I mean? So right. I feel like that's a conversation that I want people to hear with empathy. And yet at the same time, there's an equal dose of reality there. Make sense?
Oh, it perfectly makes sense. And I love that we're 5 minutes into this and I've already taken a page of notes. Jordan, you're holding true to your reputation, sir. When you go from empathetic, right, and you meet them where they are, and then you go and you're a little bit more direct with the statement that you made around you're not good at fishing yet. When you go to candor from care, what kind of responses are you, hear my question, not what do you normally see, what kind of responses are you really looking for? Like if you could mold the perfect client, what are you hoping they respond with?
Well, the thing is, Marcus, about that is it's a great question, but you have to understand where the response is going to come from. And so what I mean by that is great leaders and coaches take responsibility for the mindset their communication elicits. Great coaches and leader takes responsibility for the mindset that their communication elicits. Now, when I think about coaching, and I think Kyle has probably heard me say this, there are one of four mindsets that I'm going to put someone in. My communication is going to elicit in them. There's fight, there's flight, there's freeze, and then there's freedom.
Okay.
Right? Now, if you're going to be a great coach, what you're doing is you're always attempting to create an environment and a conversation that elicits a freedom mindset, right? I don't want to come in, and this is the difference between the maturity in coaches. Some coaches are just so self-righteous that they don't like, oh, I was keeping it real. And it's like, I mean, how long does that feel good for you?
Right.
And more importantly, you've got to really pay attention to how people leave the experience of talking with you. I don't want my people walking away shamed or feeling less than, or if they're feeling anything than I can do anything, then I have to consistently be, checking in on that. Right. And so when I think about it, I have all these little phrase Marcus, and I think part of it too, though, is that I've gotten really good at quickly building rapport with people. But I'll say things like, hey, Marcus, I'm going to make a statement, but I want you to hear it as a question.
Okay.
And I always phrase it, or I always follow it up with, because here's the deal, Marcus. I don't have the right to tell you what's real and what's not in your life or in your business. You're the only one that has that right. And so I'm going to make a statement, but I want you to hear it as a question. Now, I do that because if you want to know what the technique is to get people it's not guaranteed, right? But to do our best to elicit a freedom mindset, it's the art of framing. So you frame the conversation in a way that I'm managing that mindset so that they're open and curious to the idea that I'm trying to ship from my head to theirs. It's just like Amazon, right? Amazon delivers packages, but they take responsibility all the way up until you put your hands on that package, right? If they just left it on the doorstep, never took a picture, never told you, and it wasn't there, right? And then it never made it, somebody stole it or whatever, well, we probably wouldn't use Amazon at the level that we do today, but they take responsibility not just to delivery, but to the moment you put your hands on it. And we as coaches have to think of it that way. How am I shipping the idea so it's not just received in their head, but they open it, they're curious to it, and it changes the perspective and the way that they look at themselves, the business, whatever the context of the conversation is.
There's something here, and I want to make sure that our audience gets this. This is a conversation right now about coaching, and it's a conversation about relationships and communication.
There it is.
Use the same frame, the same statement as a question, the same setup and wrap up on your listing consultation, ladies and gentlemen. People don't want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
They want you to help them have a freed mindset, as the great Jordan just said, man. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. And I think that's right. People, and when I was a listing agent, I very much, that was one of the conversations I would take into the listing presentation. People don't want ultimatums. They want options, right? And so it's no different in coaching. And I think that line is well drawn, Kyle. And so, I think that to answer your question, Marcus, I'm especially at the beginning of a coaching relationship where I can still feel like this person hasn't quite warmed up to me, then I'm going to frame that. And I am listening for that freedom mindset. Are they open to me? And I always know there's always an indicator when they start asking me good questions. When they start asking me a good question back, right? not just giving me, if they're giving me one syllable answers, I've done something here.
Correct.
And you know, there's another force that many people don't understand. And you guys are high performers. A lot of the people I work with are high performers, at least as it relates to our industry, right? And there's a force called counter will. And a lot of us don't know about it. I actually didn't know about it until I read the book. I always mess up the title, but I'm not going to today. It's The Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Mate. And counter will is that force in us. And you guys may do this in the bold room. There's a lot of presenters and people that do. Like if I have Kyle put his hand up like this, and I put my hand on Kyle's hand and I push him, what's he going to do? He's going to push back, right? Unless he's a Bills fan, and then he'll probably just fold. Sorry.
Shot fired.
Sorry about that. So that in physical action is counter will, but a lot of people who are like grown something, they have that sense of drive. They have strong counter will. And if you're coaching people or you're in a listing presentation and you have activated that counter will, what you've done is now they have to resist you. And it's like the metaphor I use is like I could be throwing you a lifesaver or a life preserver in the ocean and you can't take it because it's from me. And you have to be so aware. And I'll never forget a conversation that like our coaching relationship was not at stake, but it like bonded us at a level that was really cool. And I said, you know, I have to apologize to you. And he said, why? And I said, because I activated your counter will on our last call. You now look at me as someone who is pushing you, and by nature, because you are a strong-willed individual, you have to push back on me, even if it's to your own detriment. And that's on me. And I shouldn't have done that. And we have to look at this challenge that we're currently seeking to solve in a different light, because now I'm going to push on you and you're just going to use all your might to push back on us. And that challenge is just like a mushroom. It's going to grow in the dark, and it's not going to go away. But while we're sitting here pushing each other back and forth, nothing's happening there. And that's my fault. I shouldn't have done that. And I apologize for it. And so that you have to be aware of these, you know, kind of this human nature. And you can, again, in a listing presentation, it happens very much the same way, especially if it's a strong-willed individual.
Kyle, man, I love that you said that this is a conversation that, yes, we're talking about, in his examples, listing consults and coaching Zooms or appointments or whatever. This transcends to every type of relationship that you've got out there, right? Your spouse, your best friend, your kids, the whole gambit. Jordan, I'm always seeking ways to ask better questions, to do the framework, to not, what's the best way to put this? I'll use a Cody Gibson one. I choose not to snorkel with a lot of people. I really want to scuba dive. And it's because a lot of the conversations and while I'm snorkeling have become repetitive and kind of not impressive whatsoever. Having a deep conversation for 30 minutes, it just fills my cup and seems to fill the other person's cup at a whole different level. So if I'm on a journey to become better at questions and better at understanding someone's, or how to elicit someone's mindset, I love how you put that. What would be a course or a path, I should say, that you would set me on, in your opinion?
Well, a self-serving way, course-wise, is my Freed Life, right? Because, but here's the thing, right? Your questions are a reflection of your level of expertise on a subject. And so what I mean by that, and they talk about that in this, and when Gary talks about the difference between an amateur and a master mechanic, right? If you talk to a master mechanic, the master mechanic is going to ask you all these questions about the type of sound that's coming out of your car, right?
Right.
And so there's a point at which, if we're talking about helping and coaching people, that you're going to understand that most of what you're seeking to do in a coaching relationship is to change behavior, right? Now, behavior always follows belief. And so what we're really dealing with is the belief systems of people. And what helps me is that I think of it like this: the stories we tell ourselves, right? And the stories that come out of our mouths are the voices of our beliefs, right? So for you to make a statement, typically, especially in a coaching conversation, well, there's a belief underneath that statement, and I'm going to see how I can. So the thing is that if you want to get better at asking questions, you have to become a subject expert. And specifically, it's about people and how they become who they are. And what I call the spiritual BMI. This is the thing that I don't tell them this when I'm coaching them. But when I think about spiritual BMI, Marcus, it's always like, what are their beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
What are their memories? And then how do they use their imagination? The human imagination is a superpower. And we are not taught how to use it. It's so powerful that the power of expectancy will change your physiology. You guys have heard of the placebo effect, right?
Yes, sir.
So once you kind of understand all this, then it's much easier to start to unpack and have those deeper conversations with people, because you're more of a subject matter expert. And if you followed me around, like, I don't read books on like investing. Maybe I should, but I don't. I don't read a lot of real estate books anymore. All the books I read are on human behavior. And a lot of them are about how people become who they are. And so the more I can understand that, the better, the richer, the deeper the questions that I can ultimately ask. Are you with me?
Oh, 100%. Yes, dialed in completely.
I just keep making stank faces because the things you're saying are so good. When it's so good, you just went, just, it's good. Like, one of the things, and this is why I gravitate a lot to your philosophies, Jordan, is because I think where we get things wrong, at least as an industry, as a hustle culture, and Jason Abrams said it so well, we're teaching fearless tactics to fearful people.
Yeah, I've never heard him say that, but that is we're teaching fearless tactics to fearful people.
Right. The behavior is just a reaction of the belief. And so I can go out and give you the master plan with all the tips, tricks, and the things that are going to work. But if that self-image, that self-story, that belief system is not where it is, man, I might as well have a Ferrari with no gas sitting in the driveway.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'll tell you a quick story on that, and not to get too deep, but had a lady one time, I was asking her, what was getting in her way. And she's like, time blocking. And I said, well, and now from at that point, usually that's when I unleashed my diatribe on time blocking. Right?
Sure.
The one thing, well, that had failed enough that I'd had enough of that. So I just said, well, tell me what you mean by that. She says, well, and I'm summarizing here, but she's like, I have a hard time managing my time. And I said, well, you don't manage time. Time is just currency that you're attempting to manage yourself inside of. So are we talking about self-management?
Mm-hmm.
She said, yes. And I said, okay, great. Well, how does that show up? Right. And she said, well, if people ask me to see a house at 7:00 at night, I go. On the weekend, I go. It's very disruptive to my family, but I always say yes. And I said, well, sounds like you have the disease to please. Yeah. Okay, cool. Were you born with that, or did you learn that somewhere?
Great follow-up.
She said, I learned it. Now, I didn't ask her, where did you learn it? I said, what's your earliest memory of practicing that? Well, she grew up in a household with an unpredictable, abusive father who was physically and emotionally abusive to her mother, and he was an alcoholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every day, what happened was car door outside would shut, dad's home. And what she learned is go get in front of dad and do everything that he asks you to do. Because the reason she did that was to distract him against going after her mom. She downloaded the disease to please into her programming, into the software of her mind and soul. But she didn't know she was doing it, right? We're adults. We can consciously identify and install habits now, right? The exercise habit, the eating habit, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Well, she identified and installed a habit, but she didn't know she was doing it. And here she is in her mid-40s with this thing just alive and well, hiding in the background. She has no idea it's there. And so when I shined the light on that, now a whole new set of choice opened up. And awareness isn't going to cure or heal anyone. You've got to then take the actions that follow it. But when we talk about, you know, these deep conversations and helping people understand who they are and why is it that you make decisions the way that you do, I mean, what are the odds that I'm going to create any behavioral change in her talking about time blocking? None.
Right.
Because the disease to please was installed as a result of a perceived and real threat. It equals safety in her. That's how she keeps herself safe. Now, by the way, in real estate, does she get benefited by being an agent that will constantly pop out, show herself to be available? Of course, she was an agent on the team and she was the top agent on that team because of her willingness to just pop out and meet people whenever they wanted. So she has all these secondary benefits to this behavior, even though it's self-sabotaging. Make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense, Jordan. We talk all the time about blind spots, whether it's personal, business, a little bit of everything, and the habits that form from those. And you've done something so repetitively, as easy as the example of downloading everything in your brain, hardcore studying for the full night before that big test. I passed. So automatically habit formed. I can study one night before and get there and do okay versus habit of, you know, studying every day, whatever. All these little habits form and we are completely unaware, especially if they formed early in our lives. So what a great story, man. Instead of going right into that, what is it, prognosis? Is that it? Or prescription, right, of time blocking?
Yeah, it's just the verbal vomit of more and more information. We're over contented, right? And you know, people ask me like where I get this. Look, I don't talk about it a lot. I had a very complicated relationship with drugs and alcohol for a long time, which really was a complication with the way I saw myself for a long time. And I self-medicated through those things and got to a point where it was literally life or death. And had to figure out how to get myself out. And so the only reason I know all this stuff is self-preservation. That's all it was. And what I share with people all the time, I don't have to have sold as many houses as you to help you get where you want to go. But you can only coach to the level of your own personal transformation. And so the greatest thing that you can do as a coach is to turn around and face all your fears and to sit there with someone and understand from a place of empathy, not judgment. No one has ever benefited from your judgment.
No.
No one ever has. No one's walking around being like, man, Kyle, man, he just really harshly judged me. And today I woke up a brand new human.
That's right.
They walk around in fear of your judgment, right? And so that I have this very holistic, different approach to it. And if you're looking for a coach that's going to punch you in the throat and hold I'm not your guy. I'm more interested in why you need to be abused to be held accountable. Why is that? Why do you do that? Who taught you that? Is that what you would teach your kids? Oh, well, if you wouldn't teach them that, why are you doing it?
I just want to clear my calendar for the rest of the day and stay right here in this pocket.
Hey, you guys come to Kansas City, man. We'll do that. We'll make that happen.
Oh man, Jordan, I want to make sure I honor your time, man, and get these people out on the road. Thank you for just a wild ride of nuggets and information and great things to ponder on after this. Do you have any final statement or thought to leave the people with on this Thursday before we send them out into the wild?
Yeah, the thing that the real estate industry especially needs to hear, and at this period of time, right? Because I don't know about you, I'm sick of living through historically significant events. Be fire, not water. And what I mean is, like, it's how you share yourself with the world. Okay. Now, if Kyle has a full cup of water and Jordan's cup is empty, knowing Kyle, Kyle's going to take half his water and dump it into mine, right? Well, the cool thing for me is my water goes up, but what happens to Kyle's?
Mm-hmm.
It diminishes. Now, if Kyle has a candle that is lit and I have one that is not, Kyle lights my candle. Does Kyle's candle get diminished at all?
No.
You've got to learn how to set up your life and your business so that sharing magnifies you. It doesn't diminish you. And what I often ask people, and this will be my parting question, is does it feel in like the pursuit of your vision is strengthening you or sacrificing you? Does it feel like you're getting bigger, better, stronger? Or does it feel like you're kind of getting more worn out, a little bit more worried and concerned about how am I going to keep doing this? And the question I ask people, you guys, is like, how is your current approach to success different than the one you would teach to your children? Because if there are differences, we have to explore that. And why is that? Now, we're not trying to create struggle-free lives for children. We want them to struggle. From that comes strength. But there is difference between struggle and suffering. I'll let them sit in the struggle. I will never let them sit in the suffer.
All right.
Just gave me goosebumps. All right. Yeah. Get up. Get away, man. I'm not trying to get misty at 8:30 in the morning with these people watching. That's beautifully said. Marcus, anything for we release the people?
I'm not going to mess up a wonderful ending. Thank you so much, Jordan, for pouring into us, for pouring into the listeners. Guys, please give him all the love in the comments, and let's put the banner down one more time at the bottom, if you don't mind, Kyle. If you are looking for more Jordan Freed in your life and the principles and everything that he coaches, teaches, and kind of holds as a standard, go to myfreedlife.com, and Freed is F-R-E-E-D, freedlife.com. Man, thank you so much, Jordan. I do have one request, either on live or in the comment section. If you can give us 1 to 2 books for anybody that's wanting to start this journey. I know we've got some avid readers out there. Does anything come to mind, sir?
The book Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith is always the one that I recommend when we're talking like through the lens of coaching. And then I would say, if you want to understand human behavior and how they become who they are, The Body Keeps Score. But that book needs to come with the warning label. It's hard.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jordan.
So don't go into that without that mindset of, be ready.
Thank you, Jordan. We're going to high five at family reunion, brother.
Yeah, man.
That sounds good.
Speaking of triggers.